Hi everyone. In the last session, we know about the GraphQL and see the difference between the REST API and GraphQL, and there we see some advantage of GraphQL and disadvantage of GraphQL. For in this session, I created a Spring Boot application there we configure the GraphQL and REST API dependency to show the difference between GraphQL and REST API. So for that, I configure the dependency starter GraphQL, starter web app. So starter that is used for the resolving the GraphQL endpoint, and the starter wave that is for the REST API. The data we configure for persisting the data into the database. For that, we keep the dependency of the JPA data S2 console database. That's the in-memory database, SQL database. So there we will see the live example of data, how data is getting fetch saved into database, and how we get the data from the database. We'll show the both the side from the endpoint side and database side, how data we have and how we get data we are getting from the database. So for that we have S2 console database. So in this project, you can see we have some setup package that we have the controller, entity, model, repository, resolver, services. Controller, in the controller, I created one controller for REST API for the book, saving data, getting data, fetching all the records from the database through the REST API. So I created a controller. Another entity, these are the entity book, authors, language, that is mapped with the database table. And model, this is the uh, request body of the REST API. Model in the request body REST API. Model is the package. And repository, this repository is the persistent layer, will deal with the database. Resolver, that is similar kinds of the controller. It's to will we exposes here to the client. They can query or perform the mutation from the client side. Save book details, delete book, update book, all book, and get book. And a service layer, that's we have some set of basic implementation, that's uh, here manipulating the data and delegating to the repository for persisting data into database. And here one more, we have a GraphQL and the resources package, a schema. GraphQL says define the data type. Based on that type, client can query or get the data, or can perform the mutation over the data. So for the query type, we have a all book and get book we defined here, and the output is a book or of get type, something like declaration of the method that we declared it in the interface, something similar kinds way we can define in the query. Get all book, that's variable. It will take the input parameter as the int type. The mutation save book details. This will save the data into the database, and this will accept the input type of book details and return the book, and delete it. It will accept the ID and return the boolean. It's save or failure or success, whatever you want to return from here. That's will it will return to the client. Update status, something like it will take two parameter input as a integer state string, that is status, or it will also return the boolean. On the book type, we define the type. So we ID title and the corresponding data type ID caps ID tilde sign with the tilde sign, that's referred to the, this is the ID type that will be the unique. So that bring and GraphQL something like we defining author type language, the type of we have a type and we map with the type here. So here is author, we take the variable attribute and we have the type of the author, language similar for the language, and this is something like a the array we defined here. And book, this is something we can in the REST API request body is input something in the GraphQL we defining the input. This is something like the request body that's client will provide. So for the book details, authors and language, we have map here. Yeah, so this is it about the date configuration of the application, the book Spring Boot application. In the next session, we'll see the example how we can purchase the data and how we can fetch the data to the postman client.